Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Unfound Podcast channel on YouTube. I am, of course, Unfound's host, Ed Denzel. I hope everybody is having a spectacular April. Of course, we're almost done with this month. May is almost here. Before I get started, I hope you will give this video a thumbs up, like it, subscribe in the bottom right-hand corner. If you'd like to support what we do here at Unfound, you can see the little join button below this screen as well. That certainly helps us continue to do what we do. As the title suggests, this is a map analysis for the disappearance of David Fugate. This is an episode that came out on April 26th of 2024. And in fact, I'm doing this video on the exact same date, April 26th of 2024. Wanted to do this, I don't know, maybe David's disappearance necessarily off the top of your heads, if you've already listened to the episode, lends itself to a map video. But still, given that there is at least one choice, is that he was at his house and walked away, maybe even took his clothes and some other things. I think it's worthwhile to take a look at where he lived, the surrounding area, the streets, to get a feel for all of this. Because after 7.5 years, I realize sometimes, although we try to explain it, it's hard to do that in audio. So you have to do these videos because I want all of you to have as complete a picture as possible. Okay, so this is where, right there in the middle of the screen, that little red dot, that is where David was living at the time. And in fact, this is now where the guest, Daryl, his brother, and David's, I think they're David and Daryl's youngest brother, they live in the same building, but within one building, there are two different apartments, and I'm going to get to that to show you that in a moment, so we can also understand maybe about this neighbor who was complaining about the radio. So I'm just going to zoom out here first to take a look at the surrounding area. Maybe I'll even go so far out so you can see where this actually is in the state of Ohio. So we're zooming out, and you can see it's getting over there kind of north of Dayton, getting over there very close to the Indiana border. Maybe some of you remember that I grew up in the Pittsburgh area, which is way over there in Pennsylvania. You can see in the far right part of the screen, kind of close to Pittsburgh. And then, although I'm familiar with Ohio, it's all the eastern side. Youngstown, Canfield, Boardman, that area. This is in western Ohio. So we'll now zoom back in just to give you an idea about that. And let's take a look at that surrounding area. What you see is not a lot of forest and woods and places, at least naturally, that could hide a person. You're seeing a lot of tans and kind of light greens, which would be translated to fields and yards. In contrast to when you get these darker greens like in here, then yes, now you're talking about trees that are very close together. But all this other area, it's been developed one way or another, either for farming or they're just yards or fields that get plowed, things like that. And this is the part of Ohio you should know where you start getting toward western Ohio, it gets very flat. And it stays like that, of course, until you get to Lake Colorado. So this is a very flat area of the United States. So when we look at this, what we might see, though, is he lives here right across the street. There is this tiny river, the Stillwater River, not much of a river. I don't believe it probably gets very deep. It's not very wide across. Maybe if they get a lot of rain and snow, the snow melts, it might get a little rough, but my prediction is that for the most part, you could probably walk across this river most times of the year and it not be dangerous at all. But on the other hand, any sort of type of shallow stream, shallow river, maybe up to maybe your knees or something, could be used if somebody wanted to cover their tracks. Whether it be somebody who's running away from his life like David might have, or a criminal, and we can even go back to like the original Night Stalker. We know that he had used streams and little trails and things to hide his movements back when he was getting away with all those rapes and murders. So that is very close. It's just right across the street. It's something I think to consider. Something to think about, and maybe it is, we might say, convenient. Just in this area is like kind of some of the more forested area, more trees in that area than you see anywhere else. So it's at least something to consider. You might think David distraught about his wife's death. Not saying he's suicidal or anything, but he decides he just wants to take off, kind of that fight or flight response. Packs up some clothes like Daryl talked about, clothes being missing, put them in some sort of duffel bag. We talked about a duffel bag missing, and he takes off. And he figures, well, he doesn't want to be seen. He goes across the street. He knows he can get out of his woods and, get out of the area so nobody sees him. Certainly possible. We know people who have run off like this, both, teenagers who are running away for whatever reason. Probably they're going to come back. And even adults. We know these things happen, although they are somewhat uncommon. So something to think about. As far as, and I'm going to do a street view so we can get a better idea of this, that may fly in the face of that. You of course always can be the judge on that. What we were talking about regarding the dogs, the dogs got a scent somewhere in this area, but that was about it. Lost the trail very quickly after leaving David's place. And once again, I'll zoom that out just a little bit to see that there's not a lot there. Now I'm going to go to a street view. I'm going to do two street views, actually. I'm first going to go over here to this Route 48 so we can get a better look at that area. And I think the important thing to remember here is that although the river is there, David would have gone through somebody's yard to get there. There are houses that line this street the whole way up this way, and then the whole way down that way. And in fact, if you're not familiar with the area, if you're just driving through here, you probably wouldn't even know that there's a river right over there. Of course, David, I think, would know it, being that he lived there for many years. But still, it would not be a situation where he could just walk from his place right across the street and right into the woods. You can see here, yards, houses, might not be as straightforward as we might think. Because his house is right over in that area. You can't see it from the road, but it's right over in that area. And we're going to be going over there for a street view in a second. So just this flat area, you would think on a Friday, maybe we might think of Fridays being a little busier day. In the morning, people going to work or whatever. With all this empty space here, you think somebody would be seeing something, but seemingly there are no witnesses to David that morning, except that video, which I'm going to get into in a second. All right, let's now go back up to satellite view, and I will take you over to that particular street. It's actually Regency Court is what they call it. And I'm going to put you right down in there. And with remember, he went missing in 2020. Unfortunately, this area has only been street viewed once, and that was back in 2014. So anything we're seeing here, I guess, could be open to change. And maybe some of these things are different. But this is the building right here. This is where David and his wife lived. As you know, she died 2 days before he went missing. And this is the place where the neighbors said, I'm not sure if it was a neighbor that was actually living in the connected spot or one of these buildings on each side that really never came up with Daryl. I'm not even sure it matters. But in one of these places is where David lived. And now these days, Daryl, the guest, of course, lives in one of these, and the youngest brother lives in the other. They live right next to each other, which is, I guess, kind of cool. So this is the place. Now, you see, it's a dead end here. All the houses, kind of all the same, kind of these two apartments under one roof type of situation. You can see the garages. We talked about that. And so everybody's kind of cozy in this little, what do they call this? A cul-de-sac. And I remind you, this is from August of 2014. So this is 6 years, 5.5 years before David goes missing. Is this David's vehicle sitting out here? I have no idea. Is this Jeep his? I don't know. But what did come up is that there was a video of Julie's car, which David was driving at the time, coming in and pulling into the garage. That's what Daryl talked about. However, and I have to admit this part of the interview was a little interesting or confusing to me, that he said he doesn't know which one of these houses has the camera. It had to have been one of these right in here if we were to believe that, yes, it showed the car actually going into the garage and the garage door going down. It could have only been, this one, this one. I'm just going to go a little circle around here. Any of these are the only ones it could have been. Maybe the one next door, over here. But we just don't know. And I'm going to urge anybody who's in the area, don't go cruising through that neighborhood looking for, don't do that. I mean, I know maybe I should have mentioned this years ago when I started doing these map videos. We do these locations. Don't harass anybody. I've never had a report of that. It's just coming up now. Don't go into this neighborhood and try to figure out which one of these houses has a camera on the front of it. Don't do that. But allegedly one of them does show the car coming back and going in, and going into the garage. But on the other hand, it doesn't show anybody leaving. But maybe that makes a lot of sense, especially if David went out the back door. So I'm maybe going to go back here and just to show you what I mean by that. So putting this in the center, where we just were was in this little area right here. It has to be if, one of those ring bell cameras, or whatever they're called, or just a plain security camera. Maybe they have problems in this area with break-ins or something. I don't know. We're going to be going back to like Stephen Kocher territory. But you could see if it's any of these houses that if he chose to leave out the back, and there is a fence there, and I just don't know if it's obvious. You can't just walk here. I mean, if you wanted to climb the fence, you could do that, or wanted to go over this way, but you just can't walk straight onto this property where this business is at the bottom of the screen. Let me show you that fence. There's the fence. Now, of course, it's a very simple fence. Looks like it's chain link, which he's 48 years old. He could have climbed over that. There's no barbed wire or anything. So I guess it's conceivable that he could have jumped over that fence. But the dog said it looked like, if we're to believe the dogs, that whoever it was went down the fence line, if you want to believe that. So there is a fence there, although it's, I guess, maybe just for decorative purposes or just a delineation of where the properties end or something. It's not a security fence. So we have to figure that into it as well. Certainly, it would have been, if David was so motivated, he could have left out the back. But then it starts getting complicated. Well, why wasn't he seen by anybody in the morning, at 8 in the morning on a Friday? And something for you to think about. And as far as where Joe lived at the time, he lived a couple miles south. I don't know his address. I'm not getting into that. But he lived, I think he lived down in this area. Not far away. Once again, something to think about. All right, so that's it. Map analysis for the disappearance of David Fugate. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and hit the join button below if you'd like to really support what we do here. Everybody have a great day. Thanks.